You know, GST can sometimes feel like you're trying to solve a puzzle in the dark. Well, today, we're going to flip the lights on and talk about one of the most confusing pieces of that puzzle, the GST Reverse Charge Mechanism, or RCM for short. This is a real head-scratcher for a lot of folks, but getting it right is absolutely crucial. So let's jump right in.
Okay, let me ask you a question, and be honest. Are you paying your suppliers taxes? It sounds a little crazy, right? But with the reverse charge mechanism, that's literally what can happen. That's why understanding RCM isn't just something for your accountant to worry about. If you're running a business, you need to know this stuff.
All right, so here's how we're going to tackle this. We'll start with the basics. What even is reverse charge? Then we'll dive into the specifics of which services and goods fall under this rule. After that, we'll look at a super common scenario that trips people up, and we'll wrap it all up with a practical checklist you can actually use.
Ready? Let's get right into it. So, what is this whole reverse charge thing anyway? Honestly, the name itself gives you a massive clue. It's all about reversing the normal flow of things.
Okay, so normally things are pretty straightforward, right? Your supplier sends you an invoice with GST on it, you pay the supplier, and they handle paying the government. Easy. Well, RCM completely flips the script. The supplier's invoice has no GST. Instead, you, the person receiving the goods or services, are on the hook. You have to calculate the GST yourself and pay it directly to the government. Think about it like this. You hire a plumber for your office. With RCM, the plumber just bills you for the labor. Then you pay the plumber their fee, and you separately pay the government the GST on that plumbing service. You are, in effect, handling their tax liability.
So you might be thinking, why on earth would they do this? It just sounds like more work for me. And you're not wrong, but it's actually a pretty clever move by the government. The goal is to bring unorganized sectors into the tax net. I mean, think about it. It is way easier for the tax authorities to track and collect tax from a few thousand registered businesses than from millions of small, individual service providers.
And let's be super clear here. This is not optional. It is the law, spelled out in the CGST Act. The government, on the recommendation of the GST Council, maintains a specific list of goods and services where RCM is mandatory. So if you're dealing with anything on that list, you've got to follow these rules. No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
All right, so we've got the what and the why down. Now for the million-dollar question. What services are we actually talking about here? This is where you need to pay close attention.
Now, the full list is, well, it's long, but you'll start to see a theme pop up. It often involves services from individual professionals, agents, and other sectors that are, a little less formalized. Let's look at some of the heavy hitters. So here are some of the most common ones you're likely to run into. If you use a goods transport agency or a GTA to move your products, RCM could apply. You get legal services from an advocate or law firm, yep, that's on you. Your company sponsors an event, you guessed it, even certain services you get from the government fall under this. In all these cases, the responsibility to pay the tax is on you, the recipient. But hold on, there's a plot twist, especially when it comes to goods transport agencies. A GTA actually has a choice. They can opt to pay the GST themselves by filing a special declaration. If they do that, they'll charge you a 12% GST on their invoice, and you're totally off the hook for RCM. So the big takeaway here is you've got to ask. Always check with your GTA to see how they're handling their GST. And believe me, the list doesn't stop there. Think about services from an insurance agent or a recovery agent, or maybe security services you get from a small firm that isn't a corporation, renting certain types of vehicles. And this is a big one for a lot of us. Services you get through e-commerce platforms. We're talking ride-sharing apps, accommodation booking sites. In those cases, it's actually the platform itself that has to handle the reverse charge. Okay, that was a lot on services, but RCM applies to goods too. It's not just about what people do, it's also about what they sell. So let's switch gears and look at what's on that list. Now, this is where you can really see the government's strategy. Take a look at this list. See a pattern? Cashew nuts, tobacco leaves, raw cotton, what do they have in common? They're mostly agricultural products supplied by a farmer, an agriculturist. See what they did there? It's much easier to collect tax from one registered business buying the cotton than from hundreds of individual farmers who might not be registered. It's actually pretty smart.
And here's a category you might not expect: used and seized goods sold by government authorities. So if your business buys, say, a used government vehicle or some confiscated goods at an auction, guess who pays the GST? Yep, you do. That's definitely something to factor in when you're thinking about your final bid.
All right, lists are great, but let's talk about a real-world scenario. Because this next one, oh boy,
This one causes a ton of confusion for so many businesses, and it's all about paying company directors. This is the big one. Your company pays its director. Seems simple enough, but do you, the company, have to pay GST under reverse charge on that payment? Well, the classic answer in the world of tax is, it depends.
Okay, this is the key to everything. It all boils down to one simple question. Is the director an employee, or are they providing a professional service? On one side, if the director is on the company payroll, they're an employee, and the payment is their salary. The dead giveaway is that the tax deducted at source, or TDS, is under Section 192 for salary. In that case, it's not considered a supply, and there's no RCM. Simple. But on the other side, if the director is paid a separate professional or technical fee for their services, and the TDS is deducted under Section 194J, that's a completely different ballgame. That is a supply of service, and RCM absolutely applies. The company has to pay the GST.
Okay, deep breaths. You figured out you have a transaction that falls under RCM. Now what? Don't worry. This last section is your step-by-step survival guide to make sure you get it right and stay out of any trouble.
Step 1, and this is non-negotiable. You have to be registered for GST. I don't care what your turnover is. If you have an RCM liability, you need a GST registration. Period. Step 2. This sounds a little weird, but you have to issue an invoice to yourself for the purchase, a self-invoice. Step 3, and this is a big one, you've got to pay that GST in cash. You cannot use your existing input tax credit, or ITC, to pay it off. It has to come from your bank account. Step 4 is all about reporting. You declare this RCM liability and pay the tax in your monthly GSTR 3B return. And finally, Step 5, the good part. In that very same month, you get to claim back the tax you just paid as an input tax credit, as long as you're eligible. So while you have to pay it out in cash first, you do get it back to use against your other GST bills.
And really, this quote from the law itself just sums it all up perfectly. When RCM kicks in, the law basically looks at you, the buyer, and says, hey, for this one transaction, you are now the person liable for paying the tax. The entire responsibility shifts and it lands squarely on your shoulders.
So as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with one final thought to chew on. Take a hard look at your business. Are your accounting systems actually ready for this? Can they easily identify an RCM purchase when an invoice comes in? Because at the end of the day, handling RCM correctly isn't just about ticking a box for the tax department. It's a fundamental part of running a smart, efficient, and compliant business. Thanks for joining me.